You are tuned in to the LowBand Show, broadcasting from the storm drains under the big city, where a tunnel crew runs this booth on salvaged gear, pipes humming, steady water driven, pipe and surface science and tech news on a low-band signal through the drains. I'm your host, Max Hertz. Welcome in. Here's what we do. We take real science and tech news from the surface, summarize it, then go deeper to educate, entertain, and shed light on what's in store for our collective future. News from the net, clear signal, and a little tunnel. If you came for hype, you took a wrong turn at the storm drain. Welcome in. Max Hertz here, underground and on the air. Wiz, good to have you in the booth today.
Good to be here, Max. Ready to dig through today's surface news.
Today we're looking at some big tectonic shifts in the AI landscape, from pricing backlash to some heavy corporate acquisitions. On the board, we've got Copilot users reacting to a new usage-based pricing system, and Microsoft facing a serious copyright lawsuit over its supercomputer for OpenAI. We also have reports on Pokemon Go data training military drones, Seattle pausing new data centers for a year, and SpaceX making a massive $60 billion play for Cursor. Plenty of ground to cover. Let's get into it. The headline promises smarter AI budgeting, but let's see how the numbers actually land. Citing GitHub's June 1st, 2026 announcement, Copilot is moving to usage-based pricing. Wiz, developers are already facing extreme sticker shock. The report says, as that new pricing model goes into effect today, many GitHub Copilot users are reporting some extreme sticker shock as they realize just how quickly their previous normal usage is burning through their newly limited monthly allotment of AI credits.
Classic SaaS playbook. They hook developers on frictionless, unlimited generation, then start metering the API calls once the muscle memory is set. It is an aggressive pivot from flat-rate comfort to strict token counting.
And the meter runs fast. The article notes, for some users, it reportedly took less than a day to use up a month's usage quota. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what exactly is Copilot?
It's an AI-powered coding assistant that reads your editor and automatically suggests code snippets or full functions. Now, instead of a steady subscription fee, every single line it suggests is a microtransaction, eating your credits.
And those microtransactions scale depending on the model you use. The text warns 1 million output tokens from OpenAI's GPT 5.4 Nano would run just $1.25 on GitHub Copilot. But that same level of output would run $30 on the Frontier GPT 5.5 model. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what is GPT?
It's the generative pre-trained transformer model family, trained by OpenAI to predict text and code. If Copilot's auto mode silently upgrades you to the Frontier version for a simple query, you're paying a massive premium for a very basic task. Talk about an expensive autopilot.
Whether developers will tolerate this metered workflow or migrate to local options remains to be seen, and the long-term impact on the developer ecosystem is still unclear. Let's move on to our next topic. The headline promises a major legal reckoning, but let's look at the actual filings. Ars Technica reported on June 26, 2026, that Microsoft is accused of building a copyright-infringing supercomputer. Wiz, the New York Times claims, Microsoft specifically designed it for the purpose of using essentially the whole internet to train the most capable LLM in history.
An unusually complex machine, built to ingest the web. Sounds like they wanted high-quality journalism to mimic without paying for it. But proving Microsoft intentionally induced infringement is a very high bar under the new legal precedent.
The Times points to a Supreme Court ruling involving Cox Communications. The filing notes Sony tried and failed to claim that Cox was contributing to music piracy as an internet service provider. Wiz, for listeners who don't know, what was that case about?
It decided ISPs aren't liable for user piracy just by providing internet access, unless they intentionally induce it. The Times now has to prove Microsoft didn't just build a big computer, but actively directed OpenAI to swipe copyrighted articles.
Right. And the stakes are massive, since the extreme outcome could require OpenAI and Microsoft to wipe models and start over. Meanwhile, OpenAI is standing firm, claiming model training is indisputably fair use. How does that fair use defense actually hold up here, Wiz?
It's the trillion-dollar question. OpenAI argues they transformed the material for a different use, so ChatGPT isn't a subscription substitute. But when your model hallucinates fake Times articles, that fair use defense starts looking a bit thin.
Whether these arguments will actually hold up in court remains to be seen, and the ultimate legal outcome is still unknown. We'll be right back after this. The headline promises a futuristic hybrid of gaming and warfare, but let's see how the actual pipeline is built. Drone XL reported on June 9, 2026, that Pokemon Go player data helped train military drone software. This matters because it blurs the line between casual gaming and national defense. Wiz, let's look at this.
Right. They gamified military surveillance. Players got digital pocket monsters, and a defense contractor got high-resolution ground-level scans. It's brilliant arbitrage, unless you're one of the players who thought they were just catching a digital Pikachu in their backyard.
Exactly. Here is how Drone XL describes the pipeline. Players scanned the physical world. Niantic Spatial turned those scans into a 3D map that lets a machine locate itself by sight when satellite signals fail. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what is Niantic Spatial?
It's an augmented reality platform that maps physical spaces using camera imagery. Think of it as teaching a computer to navigate by recognizing landmarks instead of relying on satellites, which is incredibly useful when someone is actively jamming your wireless signals.
That jamming is a huge issue on modern battlefields. The report notes, I have spent years covering how drones lose their way the moment an electronic warfare unit switches on a jammer. Ukrainian workshops cycling through navigation generations. Wiz, what does this map fusion actually do for a drone?
It marries aerial views with ground-level detail. If a drone's GPS is blocked, it compares its live camera feed to Niantic's 3D street-level maps to figure out its location. It's called visual inertial odometry, and it transforms a toy's playground into a highly resilient weapon guide.
But Niantic's parent company is pushing back. A spokesperson told Kotaku, AR scans collected through Pokemon Go were submitted voluntarily and were subject to the applicable terms of service and privacy policy. The discontinuation of AR scanning and the end of data sharing were part of the transition planning.
The classic terms of service defense. Sure, it was legal under the fine print, but nobody reads 30 pages of legalese to find out their local park scans are going to navigate loitering munitions. It's a massive consent gap.
Whether gamers can ever truly audit where their data lands is still unknown, and how these fused navigation systems will actually perform in active combat remains to be seen. We'll be right back. The fight here is really about whether a tech hub can throttle the cloud before its grid breaks. The Guardian reported on June 10, 2026, that Seattle banned new data centers for a year. Wiz, the report says, lawmakers have framed the pause as an opportunity to draft regulations specifically targeting the electricity-hungry data centers.
Unsurprising. Turns out LLMs don't run on good vibes and high hopes. They eat gigawatts. Seattle's grid is feeling the heat, so they're pulling the emergency brake before the local transformers start melting.
Let's look at the urban planning side. Here is what Seattle's mayor said. According to Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, the moratorium will also let city officials determine whether data centers are a good use of urban land. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what exactly is a city planning moratorium?
It is a temporary freeze on new projects, basically a municipal pause button. In this case, Seattle is halting construction permits to buy time, trying to leverage their zoning laws to squeeze concessions like transit funding from deep-pocketed tech developers.
The text highlights an amendment. An amendment to the moratorium that passed unanimously last week allows existing data centers in Seattle to apply for expansions requiring up to 20 megawatts of additional power during the year-long pause. Activists are concerned that the provision may lead to a spike in data centers' demand for power.
Classic.
You pass a band to look tough, but leave a backdoor wide open for 20 megawatt expansions. That is enough juice to power thousands of homes, meaning the pause is more like a selective slowdown that still lets the incumbents bulk up.
Whether this ban actually cools down the infrastructure gold rush or just forces developers into neighboring power grids remains to be seen. It is still unclear how other cities will respond. We'll be right back. This one made me sit up. A $60 billion aerospace giant buying a developer tool. CNBC reported on June 16, 2026, that SpaceX is acquiring the AI coding startup Cursor. Wiz, this consolidation is a massive play.
$60 billion for an autocomplete wrapper is wild. But seriously, it shows how desperate the race for developer mindshare is. Musk isn't just building rockets anymore. He wants the entire software stack that programs them.
CNBC reports, Cursor built a popular AI coding tool that helps software developers generate, edit, and review code. And the company has experienced explosive growth since its founding in 2022. Wiz, for listeners who don't code, what exactly is Cursor doing differently here?
Instead of just suggesting the next line of code, Cursor indexes your entire code base. It lets you ask questions about your whole project and edit multiple files at once. It's less of an autocomplete assistant and more of a virtual junior developer that understands context.
The growth numbers are staggering. The report notes, in November, Cursor said it crossed $1 billion in annualized revenue. Musk merged SpaceX with his AI startup, xAI, earlier this year, and the Cursor deal looks set to help revitalize the company's efforts to compete with rivals like Anthropic.
Crossing $1 billion in revenue in 4 years is an incredible sprint, but the real story is xAI. By bringing Cursor's engineering talent and user base under the SpaceX xAI umbrella, Musk is buying a distribution channel to compete directly with OpenAI.
The deal still has hurdles. The filing states SpaceX expects the merger to close during the third quarter of this year. The transaction is subject to requisite regulatory approvals. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what does the SEC actually look at here?
The Securities and Exchange Commission regulates these major public-facing stock transactions. They'll scrutinize the valuation and the stock swap structure to protect investors. Given the antitrust climate around AI consolidation, getting this past regulators won't be a simple rubber stamp.
Whether regulators will wave this through or demand concessions remains to be seen, and how Cursor will actually integrate into SpaceX's telemetry and engineering workflow is still unknown. We'll be right back after this. That's our board for today, and it paints a pretty wild picture of the AI frontier. From developers staring down the barrel of metered Copilot pricing to Microsoft and OpenAI defending their very foundations in court, the legal and financial stakes have never been higher. Then we saw Pokemon Go data feeding military drone algorithms, and Seattle taking a hard pause on data centers to protect its grid. Even spatial and geographical coordinates are becoming heavily contested battlegrounds. Finally, SpaceX's massive play for Cursor shows just how critical these developer tools are to the next era of engineering and telemetry, assuming the regulators don't throw a wrench in the gears. We've got some fascinating science and build threads queued up for the next session, so keep your skepticism calibrated, and we'll pick things back up when the next episode drops. It's certainly a lot to consider. If we missed an angle, or you have further questions on these topics, please drop us a comment. We read them down here in the tunnel. And if this signal helped you stay informed, a like or subscribe keeps the pipes humming. More surface news and deeper dives are coming through the grate soon. Until then, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on the Low Band Show.